time. So he was appointed, the timeline, he was appointed in November 2021 to work on this case. It was sometime after that Ms. Willis sought the special purpose grand jury and got authority to do that. And then that went through, several months, and then they issued a report to her.
So he was hired by the Fulton County DA's office before the special grand jury was authorized or
Yes.
impaneled? Okay. And so he was involved from the very beginning of that process?
Yes, and he was actually hired, I believe, before it was even, I know it was before it was impaneled. I believe it was before the order was even issued, though.
And do you know what his role was as what's the official term, a special assistant district attorney?
It's a good question. I'm not sure. He usually goes by special counsel or special prosecutor. I don't believe he goes by special assistant district attorney. I don't think he's permitted to do that. I've studied these statutes a lot, and there's no real term for it. I've heard him go by independent counsel, things like that, but I don't really think independent counsel would be an appropriate term because he's not independent. So I've studied, I did not know this before, but I've studied, the structure of the independent counsel in the federal system. They're actually a separate office. They have their own appropriations to have a separate office, and they are kept separate from the U.S. Attorney's Office. So that would be where you get the independent counsel term from, or independent prosecutor. He goes by special usually, so special prosecutor or special counsel, and I think that's because he's not independent.
Is this commonly used in the state of Georgia? I don't know the scope of your practice. I'm not familiar with DAs doing this often.
No, and so I do practice throughout the state, and I've practiced in almost every county in the state at some point in my career, and it is very rare. I've had instances where there is special counsel, but those are very limited, and I can tell you about those, and then I can also tell you what I did to investigate that, because I had the same question. So first—
Just so you'll know why we're asking, the scope of this committee is we've heard a lot of the allegations, and you, as a matter of fact, made most of them, or made
Right.
some of these public, and there's of course a public, outrage or uproar or concerns about some of the alleged improprieties that you have brought forth, both within the in the system, kind of what's appropriate conduct,
Right.
And also financial improprieties. And we're tasked with investigating and finding the true facts, and not just taking the press at face value. And that's why we're asking you for documents, et cetera, so we can independently verify the various allegations that have been made. But we're also specifically tasked with, if necessary, amending existing statutes.
Right.
Or creating new statutes to build guardrails or whatever to essentially restore the public faith in our criminal justice system, in its impartiality and its fairness. And I have looked at some of the existing statutes, but it's very sketchy. What is the real authority? And we wonder if we need statutory authority or statutory limitations. And so I want to explore with you a little bit what the authority is for a special grand jury to be conducting a criminal investigation, and also the use of a special assistant district attorney is what I'm referring it to. Right. But and so that's the context. You have done that research, so help walk us through this just a little bit. Is there a statutory process that gives authority to utilize a special grand jury to advise a DA, or to essentially accumulate evidence for a DA to determine whether or not to indict?
Right. So the first question was about whether this happens throughout the state or not. I did do open records to every single district attorney in the entire state of Georgia to find out, because I wanted to know, I knew based on my practice that it was a very rare process, but I wanted to know, I wanted the data. I wanted to actually see it. So we did an open records for every single district attorney. We have received responses from almost all of them. There's only a couple that we haven't, but I don't know that those would be big factors. The few that were remaining, I think it was Augusta that I haven't received one from. But I talked with two of the prosecutors in those districts. There's only two that actually use something that would be akin to this. And One of them said they haven't done it in years, but they have done it, and they pay between $40 and $40 an hour, which tends to be about the going rate for appointed counsel. It's between $40 and $60 an hour, I know, for appointed counsel in most counties. And then the other county that did use them, they use a part-time solicitor, and that DA said every time that they would have maybe some overflow work, an appeal or something that they had extra work to do, they would hire this part-time solicitor. So it was someone who was already a government employee, and they would pay $45 an hour for this person to do work. So those are the only people. This is a very unique to Fulton County, which I assumed, but I didn't know until I did the research. Nobody does this but Fulton County. And the AG's office does it, and so we got a lot of arguments from the state about, well, the Attorney General's office does it, but that's a whole different statute. It's not even the same section. So the Attorney General is authorized because they represent all of the state agencies. They are authorized to hire outside counsel, and they have to because there's a lot of conflict issues, and so it makes sense. So you've got different needs for hiring outside counsel. You've got conflicts, if there's a conflict, and if there's a conflict, you'd have to hire someone who's outside of the office. You couldn't hire someone like in this case, like Mr. Wade, to be special counsel because they're in the office. So you can't, when you have a legal conflict, you have to have, the offices have to be separate. So with the AG, that's usually what happens. Sometimes it's specialized knowledge. I mean, you've got people who are representing commissioners. You've got people who are representing, people in certain agencies in the state, in certain types of power. And so it might be a specialized practice area. So the Attorney General is authorized, and they actually publish it on their website, all of the rates. It's very transparent. So I went through and looked at everybody's rate. I mean, it's very transparent. How much they pay, it's based on experience. They get approval for that. They get approval for the appropriations for it, and it's just extremely transparent, which is in direct contradiction to how it works in Fulton County.
And do you know how many judicial districts we have in Georgia? I don't.
I do not. I could look at my open records request. So the judicial districts, there would be a district attorney for each of those, and so those are who I sent all of this.
It's over 50. I want to say 59.
It's over 50. I think it's 59, but I'm not positive.
That's what I think.
I think it's 59.
So out of those 59, you reached out to all of them to see if their district attorney's offices for each judicial circuit ever utilized a special assistant, outside counsel.
Yes.
Okay. And out of those, only 3 of them have ever done it?
Only 2.
Only 2.
Only 2 had ever done
Fulton
it.
County is one of them.
Only 2. Yes. I'm sorry. It's 3 counting Fulton County. Okay. I did not send an open records to Fulton County on that because I already knew that they did it.
Is there a statute that authorizes that?
There is a statute, and I cite it, if I may, I cite it in my brief.
Feel free.
Okay, thank you. I don't want to misquote it. Let's see. So it's 15-80-20. And how I came to learn that is I actually contacted the prosecuting attorney's counsel early on in this case, and because I was trying to figure out the legality of this. I did open records, and I found out how much money the special counsels in this case were being paid. And there's about 20 different people in Fulton County that are paid under this type of arrangement. It's the largest personnel budget item in the DA's office.
Why wouldn't you just hire more assistant DAs and have them in-house?
That's what I didn't understand, and that's what, I mean, in my opinion, obviously, I think that's what should happen. But the reason that it wouldn't happen is because if you're hired as an assistant DA, you can't take private work. So the statutes, and they're all in section 1518, 15-18, the one that gives the authority for this is 20. But all of those, if you read all of them, it makes it very clear that if you're going to hire more assistant DAs, they have to be paid the statutory rate. So you can't just pay an assistant DA anything you want. You could not pay them $300,000, something like that.
What is that statutory rate?
I don't know it off the top of my head, but it is in the statute. I know that, like, District Attorney Willis, for example, I think it's around $200,000, and that's one of the top paid people. So most of the people are paid, somewhere between $100,000 and $150,000, something like that, depending on their role, depending on county supplements. So what the statute says is it gives a state salary, and then you can get a county supplement. But all of that is around that range. I'd say around $150,000. But there's limitations. So to answer your question, why you wouldn't just hire an assistant district attorney, first, they couldn't make as much money as independent counsels, or I'm sorry, not independent, special counsels, couldn't make that much money, but they also would be limited in their law practice. They wouldn't be able to have private practice, and that's by statute. So if you are hired as an assistant DA, you cannot have a private law practice also.
Do you know how many there are in Fulton County DA's office?
How many special prosecutors?
No, how many assistant district attorneys?
No, I actually opened records that, and it was declined. So we actually have a pending open records lawsuit, which I did bring. I asked for that. I asked for how many were hired, when they were fired, and they declined to give me that under the Open Records Act. So we ended up filing a lawsuit, and that's still pending.
Because it just occurs to me, I think there's certainly dozens of them.
Yes.
Maybe 100.
I think 100 would be a fair example, or a fair number based on just my knowledge of it. But there's quite a few, and if you had a certain amount of money that they spend several $1 million on these special prosecutors, that could be spent on a lot more assistant district attorneys.
Do you know the process in Fulton County on how you approve the budget for the DA's office? Is that something controlled by the county, or does the DA have total discretion?
It's controlled by the county, and I do know I actually went back and watched a lot of budget meetings. They have their budget meetings online. I read a lot of the transcripts, and so it's very interesting. It's kind of a long answer, though. Depending on who you are, in Fulton County depends on how your budget is approved. So, for example, the county attorney, if they want to hire special counsel, okay, and pay them hourly, like in this case, they go and they get that approved at the county level. They actually appear in front of the county Board of Commissioners and say, we need to hire this person at this rate, and they approve the rate. They monitor the bills, they do all of that stuff. So that's what happens at the county attorney's office.
Okay, the county attorney represents the county, is not prosecuting criminals like the DA does.
Correct, it's civil. So the county attorney does all civil things. In this case, they actually did end up representing the DA in some of the open records issues, which is a whole other issue. So the county attorney, the civil body, they actually go and get county approval from the Board of Commissioners. And there's actually a resolution. So I think I attached as an example in one of my briefs a copy of a resolution just to give as an example. I'm pretty sure I did. And it's very transparent. They get it approved. Yeah, here it is. It's called a resolution, and it's a resolution authorizing funding for additional personnel. And basically, they go and they say, we need this for this project. We need this budgetary item, and it's approved. It comes out of their budget, though, so they're not going and asking for more money for the county attorney's budget. They're just asking to use the county money that they've already been allotted for this special counsel. The district attorney has taken a different position, and I was surprised, so I watched hundreds of hours of Board of County Commissioners meetings just to make sure that I wasn't missing anything, that she never went and asked for approval for any of these special prosecutors.
Her budget is granted through the Fulton County?
It is.
It's in part of its budget?
It is. These special prosecutors have been paid a couple different ways. They were paid with state seizure money. So the first, around $100,000 of Mr. Wade's funding came from state seizure money. It appeared from looking at the budgets for the state seizure that fund ran out. So then it started coming from the general fund. But it was money so Ms. Willis had a budget right around the time that she hired Mr. Wade and these other special prosecutors. She went and asked for more money for a backlog. And so she was given extra money, and that money's been renewed since. It was given to her to hire 55 additional personnel, and it's actually in the resolution. She went in front of the Board of County Commissioners and asked for it.
When was that? Do you know?
I do, actually, because I attached it to my brief. So I know the dates of things. September 15th, 2021 is when she presented her PowerPoint to the Fulton County Board of County Commissioners. And she gave a lot of statistics about all the unindicted homicides. It was mainly about homicides. It is, there was some about sexual offenses, but it was almost all about homicides. She said that, why am I here? The great trifecta: crime is on the rise, historic mismanagement, and then the COVID backlog. And so she asked for quite a bit of money to hire additional personnel. It was, I can tell you, that year it was $780,000.
And that's in the fall of 2021, just before this special grand jury was impaneled?
Yes. So that happened, she was awarded that money September 15th, 2021, and she actually did get the resolution and the process that you would normally expect.
How much was that addition or increase to her budget?
Not to exceed $5 million.
Wow.
So she was awarded for the end of 2021, which this is September 15th. She was awarded for September until December 31st, $780,000. It said, and then the next year, not to exceed up to $5 million.
All right, so hang on for 1 minute. My vice chairman here, Chairman Dolezal, is way more high-tech oriented than I am.
Okay.
He has downloaded some of your documents that you produced to us that I had asked him to have available so we could see them here. And I think you have produced to us this PowerPoint presentation that Ms. Willis made to the County Commission in September of '21 to allegedly fund backlog of murder cases, et cetera.
Yes,
right?
that would be Exhibit A to that motion. Yes,
Okay.
that's it.
And is that what we have on the screen here? Let's see if we can flip this one right.
It is.
Okay. So this is part of her PowerPoint presentation for additional funding over and above her previously appropriated budget from the county?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Okay. All right. So what were the county procedures for approval of funding for, additional outside counsel, or in this case, it sounded like she was going to hire 55 people in-house to help with the backlog. Does the county have guidelines or rules or regulations as to how you get funding approved for either additional staff to work on her backlog of homicides or for special counsel to assist you?
Yes.
What are those proper procedures?
You have to get approval by the Board of County Commissioners. And the statute that I cited originally, 1820, that statute actually is the one that it says that you can hire additional personnel like this, but it has to have county approval. Okay. So, the statute says it already. When you were asking about changing statutes, it's clear in the statute that it has to be approved by either local law or the governing authority, which would be the county in this place, and in this instance. And it's very specific that it can't be paid with state funds.
Anything in that September 15th of 2021 proposal or request for funding that addressed or contemplated special counsel to pursue indictments against folks for election fraud? No,
not at all. And I watched the video. It's online. Her speech, where she used the PowerPoint in the speech. There's nothing about that at all. And in fact, what was submitted was pretty specific. It was to hire 55 new employees, not contractors, employees, in November 2021 and December 2021. And I did open records based on this, asking who was hired and the dates of hire, because I wanted to be able to track that, and that was denied.
And who made that denial, the DA's office or the county?
The DA's office. And I did bring the open records lawsuit, just in case you had any questions about that. So it was the county, and I can tell you when I filed it. Let me see. And we went back and forth, and I requested it several times, but it was Dexter Bond at the DA's office who sent a letter back and said, we don't have that. We don't have to give it to you.
He's like the chief assistant for Fani Willis.
He is, and he's also the one who went to the Board of County Commissioners whenever they needed funding. So, if they had some large printing, and they had a big rebranding campaign where they had a lot of money that was spent on this rebranding, like posters and things like that around the office, and he had to go and testify in front of the Board of County Commissioners to get that paid because they were not paying it. So he's sort of the go-between with the Board of County Commissioners. His official title is something like Chief Legal Officer or something like that. But he's an attorney.
So you've gone back and reviewed all of the Fulton county commission's minutes and records to see what requests were made and if there was a resolution granting the additional funding?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Was there ever a request for additional funding for a special prosecutor to pursue these election cases?
No, there wasn't, and I knew that before we got the district attorney's response, but subsequently we got a response from the district attorney's office that said, we didn't do it, we don't have to do it, I'm a constitutional officer. So their argument was, we don't have to comply with those statutes or those rules because she's saying she's a constitutional officer, so she doesn't have to get county approval. She can spend her budget however she wants.
Then why would she have gotten county approval for the other 55 attorneys?
So what I've surmised is that was because those were staff members, and so she went and asked for additional budgetary money. She needed a higher budget. So for those 55 people, she went and asked for more money because she didn't have enough money. And once she was awarded that, it's her position now that she can spend that money however she wants.
Doesn't have to use it for 55 new staff. She can use it for special attorney general.
Yes.
Not attorney general.
Special
DA.
counsel.
Okay,
Right, yes,
counsel.
essentially. That is their argument in their reply briefs that they filed in court, that they have inherent authority, they don't have to comply with the county ordinances, don't have to comply with the statute.
So they don't have to comply with our state statute.
That they have, once they're awarded the budget, they can use that budget however. I mean, how their motion, and I'm happy to send the motion, it's public record, but how their motion argued it was,